G'day legends, I hope that you're all doing well. Now today will be a little bit shorter as I am rushed with time because I'm finally seeing an orthopedic surgeon about the injury I got in Turkey when I was there reporting in both Syria and Turkey on the earthquakes. Now it's been a couple of months, so we'll see how that goes. And also, to be fair, there's not that much happening in Ukraine as their counteroffensive is looming. Both sides are preparing for this. Russia's digging in. Ukraine's getting ready to, stand up their forces and then move into the counteroffensive. So as far as movements and other stuff, there's not that much happening other than, YouTubers and bloggers speculating on, apparently because they're all generals in the military, exactly where these have come from, exactly how this is going to happen. And I'm not that interested in that speculation because the more you know, the less you know. And I know that, and these vehicles will just move through this position. You're like, that doesn't just happen like that. It's very difficult. But let's go over some stuff. Let's have a look at the maps. We'll talk about some other stuff and we'll go from there. And thank you for your support as always. So it is currently the morning of the 9th of May in Ukraine and Russia, which is Victory Day for, the Soviet Union that celebrates victory over Nazi Germany in World War II. Now, it is said that Putin will be on Red Square today, as people had said that he may just be on like a Zoom chat but this comes after we saw the drone attacks on the Kremlin earlier this week. Now, we can speak in length about that, of whether it was a false flag thing, which I believe is probably most likely. Was it an attack or was it partisans working? But it's all difficult to know. It's all up in the air. But I have a full breakdown thing sent to me at the moment of how this could actually have occurred. But before we get into that and some other stuff around that, let's have a look at the maps and see what has changed. Now, Prigozhin has claimed that his forces have moved another 120 metres in Bakhmut as ammunition has started to arrive. But we don't have a deep state map today as they have not updated. But as always, here we've got Ukraine in the centre, the capital of Kyiv. The red outline, areas which have been occupied since 22, and the black outlines being areas occupied since 14, this being Crimea, Donetsk and Lugansk in this region. Here we have Romania, Poland, Belarus and Russia around here, and the Black Sea here, which we'll speak about a little bit later. And of course, here we've been through Istanbul, where we have the Bosphorus through the centre here of how to then get out into the Aegean Sea. And that will become more relevant in the future. But let's zoom in here on Bakhmut and see what we have seen change. So this is today's map, if I can stop zooming around, and then we'll bring up the map from, I believe, just over 24 hours ago. Now, something we have seen is there's no change in the claimed Russian control territory being the yellow, but there is significant changes in the red as far as assessed that we see here. It's moved up right into this region here. Now, as I spoke of yesterday, there was footage of those Ukrainian soldiers jumping out of the window fighting the Wagner troops in the second and third story of the building that was geolocated basically directly onto this position here. So that is how it is then assessed that Russia is in these positions. So Russia has moved further up into these blocks through here, further taking more of Bakhmut. And as you can see, that Bakhmut's territory is getting smaller and smaller. And especially if Prigozhin is claiming that there's been another 100 metres or so taken, any distance in this, even a block, is a dramatic increase anywhere. But also have a look at the two war mappers, and I'll pull the most recent one on the 9th of May on the right and the 8th of May on the left. Now, what changes have we seen here? And to me, these changes have only been really that this confirmed in here that Wagner PMC has been more in these regions, but the actual outline of the front line is the same. It's just now confirmed that this has actually moved up into this region, that it's not just present, that Russia actually control that area and has been assessed in there too, but no major shifts. And as always, we'll look at the Battle of Bakhmut from the RIBAR sources as well, compared to the ISW Western source. Institute of War, yes, it is somewhat unbiased in ways, but it's just the language they use and the updates. It is, as I would say, definitely a Western biased narrative as far as where the maps are and the language in what they write. Now, what are we seeing? So this is this road we always talk about that loops around, which is in here. We have seen this similar picture move up across here of this claimed control, which is by this orange and red, which is on this map of where there's ongoing fighting. The same pretty much on the assessed line and where the claimed is. Fairly similar, although maybe some more fighting up around these blocks and, Russian-controlled territory. But as far as the road of life being through Kromove here is still only just up onto it where there is multiple fighting. And we have talked in length about how this could be a purposeful move as well to maintain that road open, as both sides here are saying that this is a meat grinding operation, not an operation for an amount of land. But we do know that Wagner PMC Prigozhin did want to capture Bakhmut for Russia by Victory Day being the 9th today, and that Ukraine's original plan were to hold on to Bakhmut at least until the 9th. Now, we don't have a deep state map, but what we do have, as you can hear my voice is starting to go again, we do have an update from the deep state Telegram, which I have had translated here by my Google Lens. So update at the front of May that Belmorsk and Seversk shades have no changes. Now, some of this will be incorrect on the translation, but it's best I can get. The Bakhmut side clarify the situation of Bakhmut runs along the streets here. The enemy assault on the western parts of the city continues as we see Wagner PMC continue pushing west. The main part now is to break the multi-story buildings and secure it there. The enemy will not capture Bakhmut completely on May 9th. And Avdiivka, that fighting continues, but no changes have been reported. No changes also in Zaporizhzhia here. But another note on Bakhmut, fighting continues for the western part of Bakhmut. The enemy has surrendered significantly recently, but due to a significant reserve in human resources, he manages to keep the initiative on many areas of the front. Often the price for this initiative is daily assaults on our positions with meat. And now we're talking not only about Bakhmut, as far as Russians just sending troops after troops into these regions. Now, something I also want to have a look at was the British MOD's Intel update, as I find some of these interesting here. So, this is for the 8th of May, but reported it's only very early in the morning there today. So, Intel update. Russian military recruiters have been targeting Central Asia migrant workers in Russia to serve in Ukraine. Recruiters have visited mosques and immigration offices to recruit. At immigration offices, staff who speak Tajik or Uzbek routinely attempt to recruit migrants. Radio Free Europe reported recruiters offering sign-up bonuses of USD $2,390 and salaries up to USD $4,160 a month. Migrants have also been offered a fast-track Russian citizenship path of 6 months to 1 year instead of the usual 5 years. So, while we're here, let's just look up the average earnings in Russia. Now, of course, some of these will be a little bit all over the place, as you really need to find the median, not the average, but the average here is about 8,000 USD. So, if this is saying that they're offering 4,000 in a month, that is the equivalent of offering big money somewhere else. You need to think about this across countries as far as what you think may be a lot of money somewhere is a lot somewhere else. So they're offering, half a yearly wage in a month or more than half. The higher monthly salary and sign-up bonuses will entice the migrant workers to sign up. These recruits are likely sent to the Ukrainian front lines where the casualty rate is extremely high. Recruiting migrants is part of the Russian Ministry of Defence's attempts to fulfill its target of 400,000 volunteers to fight in Ukraine. The authorities are almost certainly seeking to delay any new overt mandatory mobilization for as long as possible due to minimize domestic dissent. And of course, any mandatory mobilization, whether it's in Ukraine or in Russia, is very unpopular with the domestic population. But we have seen that Russia and Wagner PMC actually do things like this before. Now we're talking Asian migrant workers from Uzbekistan and Tajikistan, which sit to the south of Russia. But we've also seen Russia do this in Africa as well, and also rumours happening in Afghanistan with troops that the West trained in Afghanistan over a number of decades, and then have gone there and gone, hey, look, you're being hunted down by the for, training with the West, blah, blah, blah. We'll give you a sign-on bonus. We'll pay you this much money and a Russian citizenship after this if you come and fight. Now, it's easy to judge this and say you wouldn't do that, but if you are one of the soldiers that we trained and you're being hunted down by the family, something like this may seem like a really good option. Same in some Central African countries as well, where we see Wagner and Russia working a lot there as well. So things like these are very interesting, and a lot of the troops that we trained in Afghanistan were very highly trained, highly motivated guys who are being hunted down. So things like this can work, and things like this can make a big difference. 400,000 people is a lot if they can reach those targets, but there is Russian Ministry of Defense attempts to fulfill volunteers every year. This is, yes, of course, raised numbers for this year, but overall, this time of year, they do seek to recruit more and more people. Now, let's talk about Victory Day. So, Zelensky last night announced that he'd submitted a bill being the 8th of May, but a bill to Parliament to formally commemorate the end of World War II on May 8 and celebrate Europe Day on May 9th. Now, the Kyiv Independent has reported that he has said, "We will never forget the contribution of the Ukrainian people to the victory over Nazism, and we will not allow lies as if the victory in that war could happen without the participation of any country or nation. As then we destroyed evil together, now we're destroying a similar evil together. Although now it is another aggressor, the goal is the same, enslavement or destruction. And just as we then relied on the joint strength of free nations, today we fight against evil together with the free world, together with free Europe, and we will prevail." And he has also had these two tweets. This is from his official account. "It is May 8th that most nations of the world remember the greatness of the victory over Nazis. The world admires all those who were protecting and protected life, who threw down the flags on the liberated territory and who opened the gates of the concentration camps, who restored freedom to the nations, who destroyed and condemned evil. It is on May 8th that the world honours the memory of all those whose lives were taken by that war. It is pure history without ideological admixtures, and it is the history of our people, our allies, the entire free world. Today, we are returning it to our state. Today, I submitted a bill to the Rada of Ukraine proposing that May 8th be the day of remembrance and victory over Nazism in the Second World War of 1939 to 45. Eternal memory to all those who died in the Second World War. Glory to each and every one who fought against and won. Glory to all those heroes of different times whom we equally owe our lives." Continued one later in the day. "Unfortunately, evil has returned. Like 80 years ago, evil rushed to our cities and villages. So it is doing now. Like back then, but then it killed our people, so it is doing now. Although now it is another aggressor, the goal is the same, enslavement or destruction." That's where the Kyiv Independent reported from. Many years ago, the tradition of celebrating Europe Day was established on our continent to mark peace and unity achieved. Today, unity on our continent brings us closer to celebrating the first day of our peace. Every year from tomorrow, May 9, we will commemorate our historic unity, the unity of all Europeans who destroyed Nazism and will defeat racism. This will be the day of Europe, which has supported Ukrainians for all 9 years of aggression and 439 days of the full-scale invasion. This will be the day of Europe, which helps us fight in all directions, on the battlefield, with weapons, and on the diplomatic front, with determination against missile terror and the winter blackout, in the economy and on the legal front. This will be the day of Europe, our ally, and this will be the day of Europe, our Europe, which Ukraine has always been, is, and will be part of. Now, in a somewhat rebuttal to that, Dmitry Medvedev, who is the deputy chairman of the Russian Council of the Russian Federation, has had this to say here. "I'm reminding the citizens of countries which are now fighting against Russia. Over 1 million Soviet soldiers sacrificed their lives for peace and freedom from fascism in Europe. 600,000 citizens of the USSR died liberating Poland from fascism. 380,000 gave their lives liberating Chechnya and Hungary. Over 100,000 Germany. Unfortunately, today's Europe and its squalid leaders have a very short memory. But we will always remember the heroes of the Second World War. Our country eradicated fascism in 1945. Have no doubt, in present-day Europe, we will crush the hideous Bandera neo, cherished so dearly by the heirs of the Third Reich in the EU. For the sake of the memory of our fathers and grandfathers, have a great victory day." And what I will say is millions died throughout World War II from those fighting for ideologies and against ideologies. And those ideologies still exist today. And I think it is very dangerous in any attempt to deny any of these atrocities, even the ones that make us uncomfortable, and even the ones that make us most uncomfortable that were committed by allied forces or forces that we agree with the side of, no matter where you fall in this political spectrum. I will say that soldiers don't choose their battles, and history is written by the victor, and we saw some absolute evil throughout these periods. But to me, history is written in blood, and worldwide I see a shift away from factual history that we don't like, that makes us uncomfortable, and in some cases we even try to rewrite history. As George Santayana has said, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. I think this is the reason we're seeing a surge in the West of alt-right moving towards and the alt-left bearing Soviet hammer and sickles and trying to justify and change what communism really was. If we actually told the hard truths about what happened and the tens of millions who died, then maybe this wouldn't happen. But moving on from that, there's also been what is said to be the largest swarm of kamikaze drones in months fired against Ukraine. Now, Kyiv's mayor Vitaly Klitschko has said that Russia had fired 60 Iranian-made kamikaze drones, including 36 at Kyiv, all of which he said had been shot down. There's been reports of a number of missile strikes across Ukraine as well, but getting accurate numbers and these targets is almost impossible. But this comes on the eve or the morning of May 9th, Victory Day. And as we speculated last year as well, that Russia may want to make, some sort of big push on Victory Day, but last year nothing happened really, and this year we may see the same, we may see nothing as well. But these cheap drones and long-range missiles fired from Russian bombers do pose a huge threat to Ukrainian air defence. No air defence is a complete cover of everything and nothing is a silver bullet. And this is even if Patriot has filled some gaps, which we know that it has. But it is entirely possible to overwhelm air defence systems, especially when the air defence is far more expensive and far more high-tech than what it is hitting. We have $3 million missiles hitting $20,000 drones. And as modern warfare continues to evolve and drones get, cheaper and cheaper and can participate and work in greater swarms, this will just become more and more relevant and more something more difficult to actually counteract. Now, the other day we looked at two scuffles that happened in the capital of Turkey, Ankara, at the Black Sea Economic Cooperation Parliament Assembly. And this was discussing the grain initiatives moving through the Black Sea and the Bosphorus. So this is actually what really went viral, was this video here of a Russian diplomat here stealing this Ukrainian flag, and then the Ukrainian delegate here then punching back the Russian delegate here in this scuffle, and the flag then returned to the Ukrainian during this photo op. But what isn't as reported is actually before this, whilst in the assembly, there was the Russian minister here trying to give her speech, and then there was a small protest here from the Ukrainian side bearing the blue and yellow flag, and also the red and black nationalist flag here of Ukraine, holding a protest behind her. And another scuffle arose as security then escorted these people out, and the assembly was then able to be continued. But the deadline on this that is given by Russia was May 18th, and Russia has said that they'll not extend the pact beyond May 18th unless a list of demands is met to remove the obstacles to its own grain and fertilizer exports. But what are these demands? Demand number one is returning the Russian Agricultural Bank to the SWIFT payment system, number two, a resumption of supplies to Russian agricultural machinery and spare parts, lifting restrictions on insurance and access to ports for Russian ships and cargo, the resumption of ammonia pipeline from Russia's Togloti to the Odessa in Ukraine, unblocking accounts and financial activities of Russian fertilizer companies. Now, Ukraine has said today that Russia has effectively stopped the grain deal and refusing to register cargo vessels for entry and conduct these inspections. Now, the Ukraine Ministry of Communities, Territories and Infrastructure has written the Russian Federation once again effectively stopped the grain initiative by refusing to register incoming vessels and carrying out their inspections. This approach is completely contrary to the terms of the current agreement. Russia's destructive policy makes it impossible to draw up an inspection plan in accordance with the procedures of the SCC, which require daily approval by all parties, and the inspection plan for both exit and entry. As of today, 90 vessels are awaiting inspection in Turkish territorial waters, of which 62 are vessels that are being loaded. Inspections of both the incoming and outgoing fleet are suspended. The exports of Ukrainian agricultural products throughout the grain corridor in April did not reach 3 million tonnes. Ukraine categorically does not accept Russia's efforts to stop the registration and inspection of the incoming fleet, which should take place in the view of the working initiative. We are waiting for the position of our partners, the UN and Turkey. These grain deals are huge, not only for the economies of Ukraine and Russia, but also the developing world, with the UN saying in 2022 Ukraine supplied more than half of the WFP, the World Food Programme, its global wheat and grain procurement, as it was the case in 2021. Now, this part of the war isn't as newsworthy or as sexy, say, as some other bits, but this can absolutely play a huge influence on where things go from here, especially with Hungary and Poland also looking to have some bans on Ukrainian grain moving through as the taxes on Ukrainian export of grain through those regions was dropped at the beginning of the war to inflate the Ukrainian economy as well. But legends, that is it for me today. I hope that you're well. I hope you're keeping well. If you'd like to support me, the link's down below. Sorry if this one was a lot more boring than usual. We just have some of those days. But look after yourselves, and I'll speak to you tomorrow. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.